Well, Happy New Year, everyone, and good evening. Welcome to today's talk, which is Earth.org Talks, an online conversation with Pin Cher. My name is Olivia Lai. I'm the managing editor at Earth.org. I'll be a host for tonight, which is brought to you by the Hive Co-working Spaces, and a place where passionate and entrepreneurial people can get together and share ideas while growing their businesses. The Hive has locations in Thailand, Vietnam, Japan, Australia, Singapore, and Taiwan. So to kick off 2020, we really wanted to talk about solutions instead of problems that we've been facing. It's important that we examine our inner selves and feelings about the climate crisis and how it affects our personal and professional goals. So, which is why we invited our speaker today. Pin Cher is an award-winning career and personal development coach. Having quit after more than 10 years in corporate work, she is now a trained and professional certified coach who is passionate about helping people who want their career and their life to be their authentic expression of themselves and their values. So before we start, I'd like to remind our audience that there will be a Q&A session after this interview. So make sure to pop any questions you have in the chat box here in Zoom, and I will be sure to field them to Pin. So Pin, thank you so much for joining us today. How was the start of the year? I understand you're actually quarantining at the moment.
Hi, Olivia. Yes, thank you for the introduction and showing us this very inspiring video. Yeah, 2022 has been a good kickoff. I'm now back to Hong Kong since 3 days. Coming back from Germany, I'm just very grateful to land in Hong Kong after all these hassles. So yeah, it all started very well. Thank you.
So as we kind of mentioned in the introduction, we want to learn a bit more about your background, how you became a personal development coach. Before that, you started as a corporate worker. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, hi everyone. My name is Pin Cher. I was born and raised in Germany by Hong Kong Chinese parents. And I majored in international management and business Chinese. And from a very young age, I always wanted to climb up the corporate ladder. I wanted to work in big multinational companies. And in 2011, I graduated from my bachelor and I bought a one-way ticket to Hong Kong and to work in multinational companies. So I worked there for about 10 years in different industries and different roles, but mainly in sales roles. And I would say in 2019, I kind of had a little bit of an identity crisis because of what I really wanted was to help people to unlock their potential. I wanted to coach people. I wanted to create an impact. I wanted to have more purpose in my life and in my work that I couldn't find in my corporate career. So 2019 was a year of exploration, evaluation, introspection. And yeah, in 2020, I enrolled in a certification school, and I learned so much about myself, about my passion, my values, my interests. And well, long story short, last year I quit my job, my high-paying job actually, and I started my coaching career, something that really aligns to my heart and to my soul, which is to help other professionals to find more meaning and purpose in their work, in their life. And this led to my path of being a career coach and a personal development coach.
Absolutely. That's so interesting, especially when you talk about identity crisis. I'm sure a lot of people have been facing it a lot more recently in terms of not just COVID-19, but the climate change in general, which is kind of what we want to start with this overarching topic. We wanted to talk about climate anxiety. A lot of people, so a lot of recent surveys, nearly 60% of young people have said that they feel worried or extremely worried about climate change. And it's actually kind of preventing them looking towards their future or creating any concrete personal and career goals. What are your thoughts about this? And why do you think it's especially so prevalent in the younger generation at the moment?
Yeah. So I think a lot of millennials, so I'm a millennial, I was born in the year 1986, and also the Gen Zs, so one of the newest generation, they are led a life and a career with more value, with more purpose, with more impact. So different than our older generation, like baby boomers, as well as the Gen Z, the Gen X, actually. So yeah, the newer generation, they're much more concerned about purpose, more impact. And because of the recent news, like wildfires, floodings and everything, social injustice, it's more prevalent in the news. And I think our news generation, they are more aware of that, and they are more concerned about that. And so I think it's something that they really concerned about, like more than our previous generation.
How would you compare the attitude with Gen Z and boomers, for example? What are the priorities so far you kind of witnessed in your work?
Yeah. So I think the millennials and the Gen Z, they really want to have a work with more impact, with more purpose, that they want to feel valued, that they know that what they're doing, that what they bring to the table actually makes a difference. So for example, my purpose is to create an impact in other people's lives, to really unlock their potential. But when I talk with my parents about that, so they're the generation, no, they're the baby boomers. So when I talk with them about my purpose and what I want to change in this world, they just laugh. They just say, well, why don't you just earn your money and then just be happy? And for me, that's not enough. And when I talk to my other friends who are also millennials, and some of them are Gen Z, they say, well, I'm definitely the same. I want to have more purpose. I want to have an impact. I want my work to mean something in this world, not just making money. It is important, yes. But I feel like the Gen Z and as well as the millennials, they're looking for so much more, like they have a bigger purpose in this world. At least this is the conversation that I have with my generation.
There's certainly a growing sense of anxiety in our daily lives, not just either with our jobs, but just outside in our personal lives. What is kind of some basic alleviation at the moment, before we talk about launching into different careers? What are some easy ways we can kind of alleviate these kind of daily anxiety, whether it's to do with the COVID or climate change?
Do you mean like, if you rephrase that question again?
So kind of going through our daily lives, these kind of existential issues with climate change. How do you kind of, before we talk about changing careers, what are some ways we can alleviate? Is it how we evaluate our goals and how we, our sense of purpose? What are some ways we can start evaluating ourselves?
Yeah. So the one thing I always say, I always ask questions, either to myself if I'm unhappy, or when I'm coaching someone. Like the first question I always ask is, why are you currently unhappy? Like, what is the core why of unhappiness, and how can you actually alleviate that? Because I always believe each individual actually have their own questions from within, but guiding them through questions, they actually can answer these questions by themselves instead of another person telling them what to do. So for example, if I would be asking someone, how do you think you can alleviate some of the anxieties? Answers could be totally different. Like person A would say, you know what, I just turn off the TV, the news, because it's just giving me negativity. Another person with the same question could be answering, well, I want to do like I want to have like some daily routines, daily habits, to leave the world better each and every day. For example, let's say beach cleaning, recycling. So there is no answer fits all. It really depends on each individual. But what I would say is questioning yourself and asking yourself, what is it that would help me to alleviate my own anxiety? It's always starting with questions, actually.
What have been the most kind of common anxiety or specific issues that you've talked to people about?
For me, it's, or the people that I encounter with, or the people that are coming to me, it's mostly about their career. Like a lot of people are coming to me and say, I'm very unhappy in my career. I have Sunday night blues or Monday morning blues. I don't feel happy in my work. I don't feel fulfilled in my work. I don't have purpose and impact in my career. And so it's mainly career driven. So it's really about careers, about their work, that mostly people are coming to me.
Exactly. Interesting. So our kind of overarching topic, obviously, is also about finding a sense of purpose and trying to aligning certain of your kind of environmental or sustainability goals and ambitions and kind of align them with your personal and professional arenas. So, for example, for anyone who's unfamiliar, how would you suggest or recommend people start looking for the right jobs that are aligned with these kind of sustainable goals? Do they only look at careers in the green industry, the sustainable industries, or what are ways we can kind of connect these kind of ambitions?
Yeah, I always say it starts with values, like what motivates you, what are your desires. So for example, if someone is very unhappy in their work or very unfulfilled, doesn't have any purpose and want to create more impact in their career. So the first question that I would ask is the why question again. It's really going into the core. Why do you want to work in that particular field? Why do you really care about that? There is no wrong or right answer. It's very personalized. So each individual is very unique and different. So what I would always ask is, or what they can ask themselves is, why do you want to work in that particular career? What are your strengths? What are your competencies? What do you hope to create an impact when you work in that particular field? These are the questions that I mainly would be asking them. So when they want to work in a career that has an environmental impact, yeah, these are actually the main questions, like the reason why, what is your core drive, what motivates you, and why are you so passionate about that? Because I think a lot of people don't know that. Why are you so passionate about that? But when you really dig deeper, you find the answers, and then you get a boost of motivation why you want to particularly work in that field.
I think the main issue at the moment, especially this kind of current generation, is they have these ambitions, say, to work in the environmental sector, yet it doesn't financially secure or support their lifestyle, and that kind of prevents them in achieving their personal goals. How would you discuss or kind of recommend ways to get working around it, or how can we balance those two issues?
That's a good question, because if you don't make money out of your job, then I always say it's just a hobby. It's not really your purpose, because purpose have 4 elements, like what are you good at, what the world needs, that you can get paid for, and that are your strengths. And if these are all in core alignment, then that's your purpose. If one is missing, if you don't get paid, for example, yeah, it's just a hobby. So just before our call, I was searching on Google's like green career jobs or green jobs, environmental jobs. And I was really surprised at how that so many job opportunities are actually available on the market. Because with the rising influence in climate activism, climate change, therefore there are more job opportunities. I was really surprised with that, but it's good news and it gives people hope. And yeah, I was surprised. On LinkedIn, I saw a lot of job opportunities, and they are very well paid. And as well, monster.com, JobsDB, I saw a lot of job opportunities there, which are good paid. So I actually see hope in that. So I think working in sustainability and making a good income, it is possible more than I would say 5 years ago, because there's a growing trend in that direction.
What about, say, someone who doesn't necessarily have the background? You know, a lot of these upcoming green jobs is looking for people with, like, say, environmental science background or something related in that field. If they're looking to change their career because they're so unsatisfied and wanting to do something about climate and the environment, how would they make the transition Because obviously a lot of people are scared to taking the leap, or even though that's something that they wanted. So how do you kind of combat that fear and make the change because of something you really care about?
Mm. It's so on top of my head, I would say to volunteer. I think this is one of the the main, I think the main step. But I've seen so many job openings as well. Like, you don't need to have a green career prior experience. Like, if you have an experience, let's say in sales, this is what I've just saw as well on LinkedIn. If you have a prior experience in sales, for example, and you want to switch out of curiosity and your own personal interest to a more green job or green career, that is possible. So even though you don't have experience in green careers, you can still move to a green career by your prior experience. If you don't have that, I would say to volunteer, or really to impress the hiring manager why you're a good fit, and really talk about your desire, your passion, and your purpose on why you want to work there. What is your core desire? What do you want to create as an impact? That alone, from my experience, already convinced a hiring manager to take you.
Interesting. I am curious though, is there any way we can do it from within instead of switching jobs? Is there any way we can suggest our current jobs or our current industries to add more value to these, add more environmental impact within our current positions?
You mean, do you mean maybe if you can rephrase that?
Or is there any way, say, perhaps suggest we should do more volunteer work and within our own company, or add more, environmental activities,
Yeah, definitely. I've seen it in my previous job experiences. I was working in these big companies, and it's getting more and more found there. Like, for example, paperless, digitalization. And I know that a lot of companies, including my old companies, that they are offering green days, for example, beach cleaning activities, or some other green initiative activities. So more and more companies are offering that. And if not, why not suggesting that from within the company, and going to your manager or to your supervisor or the upper management, and saying all the benefits of why we can have a green initiative. So it all starts from the individual part, and why not starting from the bottom instead of from the top? So I think we as citizens, we can take the ownership and already tackle that issue, and creating more awareness within the company.
As you mentioned earlier, you did see witness a bit more positive trends within these kind of big corporation companies. Based on your experience, what are some ways you can open that conversation, say even within your line manager, within your own team? How would you encourage, especially people, when you're talking to people who's probably not interested in these kind of environmental or climate issues, how would you open that conversation and create more activity or do more stuff together?
Yeah. So I've written some numbers, because when you talk to big corporates, from my experience, you always win when you give stats and information and facts. So by 2025, 70% of the workforce will be millennials, and then the Gen Z. So according to my studies, 76% of Gen Z, they say the biggest concern are climate change. And as we know, millennials and the Gen Z, they are the main consumers right now, actually. So that would be something to convince a manager, for example, or the upper management. And the generation Alpha, the alpha are the ones that comes after the Gen Z, that 70% saying that saving the planet will be the central mission. And 38% of employees, or actually millennials in the Gen Z, they say they are more loyal to companies who have corporate sustainability practices. And as well, what companies are really curious about, sales revenues can increase up to 20% if they have corporate sustainability practices. So these numbers actually are the ones that could be convincing in upper management, because it's all beneficial for the companies. And what I've also read before our call, like some of the studies, the Gen Z as well as the millennials, they are very value-driven consumers. So for example, they will look for brands, or they look for companies who have a certain logo on their packaging, or if they have, or if they are, if they are a green company, because they will support these kind of companies. Let's say Patagonia, if I pronounce it correctly, Patagonia. Yeah. They had a sales increase of, I think, 30% because of their mission to save the world, to fight against climate change. And yeah, these are some of these, I would say, some of the arguments to convince someone.
Absolutely. And as right now, the people are starting to graduate more during this time of COVID, and this is where kind of the main body of the Gen Z are coming out, going into the workforce. Do you have kind of any big message for them, or and kind of encouragement, like, hey, these are ways you can start looking, or don't be too worried about what's going on. There's actually great opportunities out there.
Yeah, I would say, don't worry too much. According to my study, there is a huge potential in sustainability, in green initiatives, and it has been supported by a lot of celebrities. It has gained more awareness, such as, just name some of the celebrities: Leonardo DiCaprio, Jane Smith, a lot of big companies, Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, HP. Like all of these companies, they are pioneers in sustainability. So more job opportunities will be open in the very near future. So I would really say, don't worry about that. There will be opportunities, and there will be high-paying jobs, especially for these kind of jobs. So I see it very optimistic, and not to worry about some.
Yeah, on the other side of the spectrum, which is a lot of people there's a kind of a recent great resignation trend going on, especially in the US. Mainly it could be a result of COVID-19 and the recession, but also potentially if the climate becomes worse, if there's more climate events happening, people are becoming more, at least they're reconsidering their priorities in their careers. Do you see that happening again, or even more, this kind of trend of great resignations? And how would you say it will affect kind of the larger society in general?
Yeah, you're right. The Great Resignation. I also call it the Great Awakening. Yeah, it was there. It was there before. I think with COVID-19. It really accelerated everything, that people are quitting their job, number high, especially millennials and Gen Z, because spending more time at home, evaluating their priorities, evaluating their passion, desire, and really evaluating why they do what they do. And this again comes to the question of why and the purpose. Like, why do I do the job that I'm doing? What does it give it to me besides money? So I think people are spending more time at home. They have the time for introspection, to really evaluating. So I see, me myself, I see the trend as well here in Hong Kong, but as well as in Germany, where I just came back from. And sorry, and the last question was?
Just kind of, if this trend keeps going, or if it happens more, would you think that will affect the kind of larger society, or how do we move forward from here?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it does impact the larger society, but especially companies, because from the studies that I've seen or that I've read was millennials and the Gen Z, they're looking more in their work. They're looking more in their career. So what they really, really want is they want to feel valued. They want to know that their work creates an impact, that it has a purpose for the greater good. So I think the challenge for companies currently is, okay, how do we implement that? How can we actually feel employees or workers more valued in our company? How can we retain them? I think this is one of the biggest challenge. And I can see there is a switch now, because before I feel like employees were the ones who were more like, oh, please hire me. But now when we read the war of talent, now it's up to the millennials or up to the Gen Z who can choose their jobs. And now it's a work task of a company on, okay, how do we actually attract the right candidates? And how can we make them feel valued so they can live up their purpose and their mission in our organization? So I think this is the main switch.
Absolutely. What about to those who are probably not in the position to resign, but they're preventing themselves to achieve their personal goals or accomplishments or even their happiness? How would you help discuss in ways in changing? Is it the way their attitude towards work, or is it you have to find your happiness or your purpose outside of your career?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I always see it as fulfillment, because happiness for me, it's, yeah, I'm happy that I got a promotion, but is it equal to fulfillment? Are you fulfilled of staying in a company? And I think the main question that I always ask myself and some of my clients is, are you fulfilled in your job? So if they say, no, but what can I do? I have a family to feed, I have bills to pay. So the only option is to stay at the company. Okay, fair enough. But then the second question that I would be asking them, okay, if you're staying at that current company, how much does it affect your mental health? Because mental health is something that I also think is something that a larger audience is talking about now. So yeah, so the second question is, so if you stay at your current company or your current work, how much is this affecting your mental health? And if someone is saying to me, it impacts my mental health really, really much, from a scale from 1 to 10, 10 is the worst. Yeah, it's 10. And then I would be asking, so you staying at that company and affecting your mental health, is it worth sacrificing your mental health and your family time and your physical health? And normally that's the time when people will evaluate and really reflect on their decision. But normally I would say, if you really can't change your job, at least finding another alternative, because someone is then sacrificing their mental health, physical health, and their fulfillment and happiness for a job just to pay the bills. So I would say looking somewhere else, but staying at that job until they have something else. That is always a tip that I would give.
I am interested to kind of expand the idea of fulfillment. What do you mean by, how do people measure that? You know, not everyone is different. It's quite a subjective feeling. What would you say when people start thinking and asking themselves that question? What was basic benchmark, say, for fulfillment?
Fulfillment is when you live according to your purpose. So what I've mentioned before, there's a Japanese concept which is called the ikigai, the reason for being, it's called. So I mainly use it for career or for work. So for example, do you get paid adequately for your work? Are you using your strength? Are you doing something according to your interests, and do you create an impact with your work? And if these are all in alignment, then you're basically living according to your purpose. And when you live according to your purpose, you feel deep fulfillment. So when you wake up in the morning, you can't wait to start the day. You don't have that sinking feeling in your stomach and be like, today I have to go to work. Like, I wish I could stay in bed way much longer. That is not fulfillment. Fulfillment is really when you live according to your purpose, and you can't wait to start the day. This for me means fulfillment. But it's also luxury
to have that fulfillment.
So there's this Maslow pyramid. It says on the top, on the bottom, it's shelter and security and food. If you don't have that, then you cannot have fulfillment, which is self-actualization. But when that is all given, you have psychological safety, physical safety, like shelter, and you are being loved. Then on the top, then we can talk about self-actualization and fulfillment. And this is the reason why I call it's a luxury.
What would you say are some of the biggest obstacles in people achieving their goals on an accomplishment today? Is it just being limited by their work life, or is there something else you would say is impacting us in kind of trying to even achieve a goal?
Yeah, I would say, that's a good question. I say it's fear. So with a lot of people that I've spoken to, they say they're fearful of failure. So for example, I'm fearful that I don't get anything better than what I'm currently having. So it's a fear of failure, or a fear of judgment. Like, me switching my career, people may judge me, or people say, well, you're stupid, you're doing a wrong decision. So better stay at that corporate job that you hate. So it's so I would say it's the main thing is fear, and the fear of the unknown, because you don't know what to expect. But I always say, and this is where positive thinking comes into play for me. Why thinking, or why having that perspective of, why shouldn't I deserve things to be better? Like, why should I only limit myself to things to get worse, to earn less money, or to have a shittier job? No. Why shouldn't I change the perspective and have the mindset of, no, things will get better, and it will be better because I put my focus and effort in making things better. This is always what I tell my clients, because these are the fears that they're coming to me with. Fear of failure, fear of the unknown, and the fear of judgment. And there's another factor, what I've seen, is the lack of focus. And what I mean by that is, what I've mentioned before, why do you want to do what you want to do? If you have that, what would change for you? If you have that, how would you feel? Like, these are all reflective, deep, meaningful questions to ask yourself. And this is what I've done with myself as well, because I didn't have the clarity of what I wanted to do. I only knew I was unsatisfied, I was frustrated in my job, but I didn't quite understand, where does it actually come from? Until I really did the deep work and also the healing work of, okay, what is it that I really want? What is my desire? What is my passion? What kind of legacy do I want to leave in this world? So answering all of these questions, that will help to have more focus.
I think this kind of forms quite perfectly with the concept of climate anxiety, because you fear the unknown. You don't know what kind of future jobs are there, or even if there's a future to look forward to. I think these are very all important questions to ask yourself when you're moving forward in your personal, professional career. What are biggest changes you like to see in terms of how institutions or society in providing specific green or jobs that can help fulfill those purposes? What do you feel like? Should we like move away with a super financial economic way of looking at things and start shifting more towards what we talked about, having more focus on what our goals are, what we want to change, and on impact?
Yeah, this is what I would like to see, and this is what I would like to see in the future, that people are, and it starts already with the Great Awakening, with the Great Resignation. I mean, it's unfortunate, of course, that people need to resign, but the Great Awakening, I would say that's the right word. And I'm happy to see that, because it means that people are awakening to the fact that they go into introspection, they evaluate why they that they are more aware of what they want in the future. Because we have seen in the past, we have seen statistics of depression, frustration that impacted the productivity. So it also impacted the economy as well as the performance of the company, and also the mental health of people. And that's why mental health is now a topic that everyone talks about. Like before, it was all behind doors, but now you can see it almost everywhere. So, and this is what I like to see. Like, people should talk more about that, more about their mental health, and really doing jobs that aligns with their values. Because when people are working towards their values, their passion, their purpose, people automatically will be more happier and fulfilled. And therefore, they do their job with more motivation and more happiness, and they are more productive. I mean, studies have shown that. And this is what I want to see in the future, that people are living according to their value, purpose, passion, and interests. So there will be less about mental health disease, or less about depression.
Absolutely. I'll just maybe ask this final question before I open up to the public for the Q&A. This is quite a big one, which is would you say there is a formula to the pursuit of this happiness? Is there a kind of something tangible you can follow through, or is it just some guidelines you can kind of follow?
Yeah, I would say it's that's the difficult part, to make it tangible. I haven't figured out how to make it tangible yet, but the pursuit of fulfillment, or you call it the pursuit of happiness. The way I see it is, if you get paid for what you do, if you get adequately paid, if you're working if you work in favor to your strengths, if you work towards a mission, so something that you really care about and that creates an impact for the greater good, and something that you're really good at. If you have all of that in alignment, then you are living according to your happiness or fulfillment. This is how I see it. But to make it really tangible, it's a little bit difficult. But you can feel it.
Absolutely. Great. Let's open up to the questions for the public. I have a couple of people sending in questions to me. So the first one is, because of the limited green opportunities locally, is it better to look elsewhere instead of just staying in the same country?
A question to me?
Yes. So I'll be directing all the questions to you.
Yeah. So from what I've seen just now, I also wanted to get prepared on how many jobs are there actually in Hong Kong. There are a lot, I have to say. As I mentioned, I was even surprised at how many jobs are actually available for green jobs or green careers in Hong Kong. But in order to switch somewhere else, like a different location or a different country, it really is a personal decision. If you think that it's okay for you to switch countries or switch a location for your job because there are more job opportunities there, you can go for it. But I've also seen people who said, well, if I go to Germany, because in Germany there are a lot of green careers, I call them green careers.
Yeah.
They say, well, there are more job opportunities there, and I believe I can get a job there. But my family lives here in Hong Kong. I really can't do that. So they stayed in Hong Kong. So it's a very personal decision. It really depends on you whether you can sacrifice leaving your current location for a job that you're passionate about.
Absolutely. There's a question here that's slightly different. A lot of companies trying to be more environmental friendly or lessen their carbon footprint are suggesting they work remotely. Does that actually affect personal growth or kind of achievement wise?
I don't think so, because from what I've seen is, a lot of companies are now offering a remote working or at least hybrid working model. From what I've seen from the studies and people that I talked to, it doesn't really affect them. It's even better for them because a lot of millennials and Gen Z, this is one of the demands that they have, flexibility. So it's actually good for them. I would say it doesn't really, as far as I know today, it hasn't impacted them yet.
I think the idea is like people enjoy teamwork, have that sense of community. Does kind of remote working kind of prevent that feeling?
I think the newest generation, they're very tech savvy. I think for them, it's some of them even. I think a lot of people, when they did the study, 70% of people, they actually prefer to do Zoom meetings instead of going to the office every single day. So, for example, hybrid working or the flexibility of remote working. I think this is something that they can. I think this is something that they advocate for. I think it doesn't really impact them, as far as I know.
I'm curious, do you think it's actually a make or break condition to be that flexibility when you're, say, looking for a new position or changing careers? If a company is not flexible, is it something that you should give up quickly because it doesn't fit with your goal and your flexibility?
Yeah, I think this is open for discussion always with the manager or with the hiring manager or with the upper management. But from what I've seen, a very high percentage of millennials and the Gen Z, they highly demand to have flexibility in their work, like 60 to 70 people. That's quite a huge number. It's more than the average. They clearly said, I want to have flexibility. But there's also a smaller percentage that say, well, if I don't have that, I can compromise that with something else. Yeah.
Okay. Next question is, how to start building the mindset that we can do whatever we want if we work for it?
Well, what does that mean?
I'm not sure. I'm just reading the question. Perhaps it'll be just saying, how do we start creating that mindset, that confidence to take away that fear when we want to achieve something, that as long as we want it, we can make it,
Oh, okay, Anna. What really helped me, because I was in the same position, so I was having a corporate career for about 10 years. I had nothing to do with coaching or mentoring, and I also had a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety. And so I had coaching. I had a career coach myself, and I was reading a book that I can highly recommend because it really helped me. It's called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. It's by Suzanne Jeffers. So she's the author. She said, what is actually the worst thing that can happen? if you take the leap of faith.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, wow, that's a different perspective. I never thought about that. I thought always like, oh, if I do this, then people judge me. If I do this, I don't know what's on the other side. It's going to be worse from what I'm actually having.
Mm-hmm.
So what really helped was changing the perspective of positive affirmation and positive self-talk, positive psychology. So an example is, if I change a job, what of all the good things will happen to me? Like, if I achieve that, what possibly can go right? And how proud am I when I achieve that? Not just I'm proud, but how about the other people, like my parents, my family? And so really changing the perspective. And then I think at least that helped me to alleviate the anxiety and really taking the leap of faith.
Mm-hmm. We have a question quite personal for you, which is what's the biggest challenge as a personal development coach nowadays?
The main challenge is, so for me, I want to reach a wider audience in Hong Kong, because I live in Hong Kong. My parents are in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is my home now. And so a lot of my clients are actually from the US, because coaching and mentoring and personal development, it's more prevalent in that area, or in the UK. So I have a lot of clients from that region. In Hong Kong, I feel it's about to start talking about mental health. It's not a taboo topic anymore, but it's not as fast as in the Western countries. So I think that is my main challenge, to really gaining more and more awareness in Hong Kong. So I have to do more talks like today.
Yeah. I have another question from my end, which is we talked about mental health and the importance in kind of achieving that value in our career and that impact, creating that impact. So we actually spoke to a climate activist a few months back, and he did talk about protecting his mental health, when you're trying to pursue that fight against climate change and keeping that momentum going. How would you, relating back to climate change and all that, or just a general overview, how would you say to maintain a strong mental health when you always switch on the news and it was just terrible news all the time? How would you kind of discuss and alleviate those kind of anxiety?
Yeah. What really helped me was meditation. A new concept actually for me as well. Meditation, sitting in silence, because all these negative emotion, it comes from somewhere. But when you meditate, especially mindfulness or going out in nature, because nature gives us so much, I don't know where it comes from actually, but yeah, it gives us so much energy and so much like a lot of silence. And meditation and sitting still with your thoughts. Where do these thoughts are coming from? And to really embrace that as well. Because with all the negative news and always fighting against climate change, it is a hassle, I believe. So I'm a vegan activist. So I'm a vegan. I'm also fighting against climate change. And it was also very distressing for me, convincing everyone, hey, go vegan, it's good for our health, it's ethical. But some people, they're like, I don't care.
Yeah.
And something that's so important for you, and people rejecting that, it is causing an impact in our mental health. I do agree on that. So what helped me was meditation and detaching myself from that thought.
Interesting. We have another question. She's speaking as an American, talking about how do you reconcile the inherent privilege or lack of privilege that you might experience based on race or gender with finding self-fulfillment?
I don't like whether there is
Because probably there's a lot of inherent institutional either sexism or racism that prevent people from achieving self-fulfillment. How would you recommend in reconciling those obstacles, for example?
Oh, it's a good question. I've never really thought about that. Thought about that question. I don't have an answer for that.
Speaking, I mean, obviously you grew up in Germany, but your nationality is Chinese. How did you personally experience any issues or say fulfillment in dealing with your identity, for example?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I was born and raised in Germany, but my parents are from Hong Kong. So for them it was, and I know also for a lot of other Asian friends, we are raised, you know, like very traditionally, like you study law, study medicine, or study business, because what really counts is how much money do you have in your bank account. Like, at least this is what I get from my parents. So at the beginning, I wanted to study psychology because I was always so fascinated about the human mind. But yeah, and now this is what I'm doing right now. But when I was younger, it was about what major can you make the most income, the most money. So it was okay, it's business. So I only had like few options. So when I know from my Asian friends, they say, well, I don't have a choice to study what I want or according to my passion, because my parents and my upbringing tells me the main focus should be the income, should be the money part. So so I think a lot of Asians grew up with that mentality that they cannot work towards fulfillment because of the social pressure from the older generation. You have to study certain subjects in order to have that certain income. So for them, it's very difficult from what I've seen. Different than in the Western world. It's more about individuality, do according to your passion, to your interests. They're more open-minded. So I would say that is the main difference when it comes to fulfillment, that the Asians have a little bit more difficulties according to what I've seen and from my experience. But it's getting better, especially people who have been overseas. They are now working towards more according to their passion and have more passion projects.
Interesting. So maybe we'll kind of approaching the 1 hour mark. Maybe I'll end this with this more optimistic question, which is how hopeful are you about the future, especially for our younger generation? We talked about the Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and the next generation. How hopeful that, you know, we'll all kind of find a path and create a more sustainable future and reaching, as we mentioned, the self-fulfillment?
I'm very optimistic, very, very optimistic. Yes, because I see a trend in the right direction. Zero waste, it's more and more prevalent. I was just in Germany. Everything is green, I feel. On every product that you're buying, it's either vegan, which is good, or it's eco-friendly. The Gen Z, they're the forerunner, and the millennials as well, in the green economy, shared economy. And so that's why I see it's very optimistic. I see it very hopeful. I see the trends into the right direction. Of course, there's still a lot of work to do, but the process is already in the making. So I think millennials, the alpha generation, they will have a hopeful future. I really believe in that.
Great. That's hopeful for us as well.
Yeah.
So with that, that brings an end to an evening. Thank you so much for everyone who joined us tonight. And a big special thank you to you, Pin, for being our guest. So where can people follow you or potentially reach out to you if they're interested?
They can reach out to me on LinkedIn. They can reach out to me on Instagram, on my webpage, pincher.coach. So yeah, people can reach out to me there.
Great. Of course, also everyone, please do keep following Earth.org on Instagram, Twitter, our website for all the latest updates and about the environment, about climate solutions from all around the world. So great to speak to you, and it's an absolute pleasure having you on, Pin. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and stay safe. Happy New Year once again.